And so now if you look up metformin and look up anti-aging, there's like there's a lot of studies being done. There's a big study being done right now on metformin to prevent aging. And this is not in people that have diabetes. They don't have type 2, they don't have type 1, they don't even have blood sugar problems at all, and not even metabolic syndrome or pre-diabetes. These are normal people and with normal metabolisms. And then the question is metformin going to help them to live longer?
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Fix Blood Sugar webinar. We are so excited that you are here to join us today. Today, we are going to talk about metformin. We get so many questions about metformin. I asked Dr. Saunders, what would be a good thing to talk about for this week's webinar? And that was what he had mentioned. And I'm so glad that he said that because every week when we do webinars, that is one of the things that comes up. People want to know about metformin. Their doctor maybe prescribed it for them. They may want to know side effects, why they were prescribed it, what does it do to the body, and is there a chance of maybe getting off of metformin? So those are the typical questions that come in. If you are on right now, feel free to ask your questions. If you have questions about metformin, we want to answer those for you. We are here, if you're new here, we talk about type 2 diabetes on this webinar. And every week we're on 137. Is that what I said? 137, I think so, is the episode number that we are on. So we've been around for a while talking about type 2. And Dr. Saunders, we're so blessed to have him. He meets with patients every day. Well, maybe not every day. He takes some breaks. I've traveled with him before, so I know there was a break, but he still does talk about type 2 even on those breaks. So yes, every day he does talk about type 2 with someone. He meets with a lot of patients, and the information that we're sharing on this free webinar is the information that he gives to those patients and those people who come into his office. And so we feel like this is such a valuable piece to what Barton Publishing has to offer. Many of you have purchased the Diabetes Solution Kit. And you maybe are working to reverse your type 2, and that's where you heard about this webinar. Many of you aren't even sure how you ended up here, and we're excited you found us. So welcome to the Fixed Blood Sugar webinar. I'm Leslie, in case I didn't mention that. And we have Dr. Saunders here with us today. Joe may pop in, I'm not sure. But one thing I want to do before we get started is just a quick thing to show you. If you were on Zoom, go ahead and type questions in that Q&A. That's a really good spot for me to kind of manage the questions. Those of you on Facebook, feel free to comment there. And if you want more information about what exactly we're doing, you can go to bartonwebinar.com and you will find all the information. So let's go ahead and get started. Dr. Saunders, I'm going to have you do a quick disclaimer and why it's important to do a disclaimer before we get started.
Okay, the information that we're giving is general information. It's knowledge. It's like reading a book, and the information that we have might be for a specific person or a specific type of person, but may not apply to you. So it's really important that you take the information that you get and apply it appropriately and properly to your situation. Because your specific case might be different than the what we're discussing.
All right, good stuff. Okay, so I said we're going to talk about metformin today. If you guys are not familiar with metformin, I believe this is a medication that many people who have type 2 are often put on when they go to the doctor. And so Dr. Saunders is going to share a little bit with us about that and maybe just kind of give us an idea of, someone's going to the doctor to figure out if they have type 2, what is kind of that process and how does metformin play into that?
Okay. The process of getting type 2 is a rather simple process of getting too much. There's a lot of factors that are involved. You can't just say, well, everyone who eats too much is going to get type 2, because that's not what happens. Some people do and some people don't. There are plenty of people who are very overweight who do not have type 2 diabetes, and blood sugars are not elevated, and they don't even have metabolic syndrome. They're just overweight. And that's okay. And that's they may have too much calories, or they're stored a lot of calories anyway. But that doesn't mean they have type 2. So what's going on that some people do and some people don't? It's not just having too many calories. Yeah, that's part of it. But you also have to have some kind of genetic predisposition to it. There has to be some other things going on at the same time. So in some populations, for example, they may have 80% of the population gets type 2, and some of them don't even have to be overweight. They can have a normal body fat and be considered normal, and yet still have insulin resistance and type 2. So there's much more going on than just getting too many calories. Yes, that's part of it. But you also have to have some genetic predisposition, and maybe some deficiencies of nutrients or toxicities of some toxins in the environment, for example. So it's not a simple question, it's a complex question. In the process of getting type 2, what happens is the cells become full. They fill up with sugar, essentially. It's a starch, essentially called blanking on what it's called. What is that stuff called? Glycogen. So glycogen is a bunch of sugars together in a branched form, and then the cell can then take the sugars off as needed. Of this, like there's a tree growing, and they just take the sugars out, and then that shrinks down. So that glycogen is kind of like a starch, and it's stored inside the cells, muscle cells especially. What happens in some people is they just store a lot, and they just their cells fill up easily with sugar, and they don't use it as easily. They're very efficient at it. And what happens when the cells gets full is they say, wait, stop, and they block the insulin receptors from letting sugar in. And so they're closed off. So now the sugar can't get in, and insulin comes and says, hey, open up. And they're going, we're not opening up. And so that's insulin resistance. So metformin comes along, and metformin has a lot of different effects on the body, but it affects mostly the mitochondria. And the mitochondria are they're actually like little bacteria that live inside the cells that are the powerhouse. This is what makes all of the energy for the cell, called ATP. Metformin blocks an enzyme that causes an increase in what's called cyclic AMP that tells the body, hey, you need to start burning fat for energy. And you have all this extra fat, right? A lot of people do who have type 2. And so the metformin essentially tells the body to start burning fat. There's a couple of other interesting things that metformin does, though. And so now if you look up metformin and look up anti-aging, there's a lot of studies being done. There's a big study being done right now on metformin to prevent aging. And this is not in people that have diabetes. They don't have type 2, they don't have type 1, they don't even have blood sugar problems at all, and not even metabolic syndrome or pre-diabetes. These are normal people and with normal metabolisms. And then the question is metformin going to help them to live longer? So it has several effects. What's really interesting is one of the effects is on what's called mTOR. It's a gene that is induced when you eat a lot of protein, essentially. So a high protein meal will induce this mTOR, and it helps you to build muscle. And the really interesting thing about that is metformin blocks you from building muscle. So there was a study done on elderly people, and with working out, the ones that took metformin, they don't get muscle mass. They do get stronger, their muscles get stronger, but they don't get muscle mass as easily as the people not taking the metformin. And part of it is this protein, the mTOR protein, that helps the body to build muscle. So it's a really important protein, right? However, when you have too much of it, if you're eating protein after protein after protein, then you have lots of this mTOR around, and that induces other problems. It's excessive amounts produce things like cancer. And it's been shown to actually induce cancer. So then you would think that metformin would prevent cancer. And guess what? It does. Metformin does prevent cancer. Or there's some evidence that it does, should we put it that way? So all of the things that you would expect to happen with the metformin actually do happen. So other people, for example, it blocks their energy production in their muscles, and they get achy muscles because it blocks the mitochondria. And if they have high insulin and they can't use fat, and then they have the metformin and they can't use sugar, now they don't have a good way of making energy normally. So then they get muscle aches and cramps and stuff because they don't make enough energy to relax the muscles. That's interesting. You think you need energy to contract the muscles, but you actually need muscle energy to relax the muscles. It's kind of like a mousetrap. This is a muscle. So this is my example of what a muscle is. So a mousetrap, you have to put the energy in to set the mousetrap, and then you set it, right? And then you carefully set it down, and you don't touch it. And all it takes is a little tap, and bam, the mousetrap goes, right? And you think that bam is the energy, but no, that's the release of energy. Putting energy into it, making the ATP in your cells is required to reset the mousetrap. Well, that's what's required to reset or relax your muscles. So the muscles are in a relaxed position when they're set. And then when the impulse from your brain comes by, the electrical impulse, and says go, and it goes bam, and that's the contracted part. And if you got them all your muscles contracting, it's going to pull and pull and pull, and there's a lot of pressure. It can put hundreds of pounds of pressure on your tendons, and you can go and if you've ever had a muscle cramp, you're screaming in pain. What is the muscle cramp? Well, it's contracted muscles, and there's not enough energy to relax those muscles and let the cramp out and everything. So what do you use? Well, magnesium. You can use the magnesium spray, from Barton Publishing. You can do a bath with Epsom salts. Epsom salts is magnesium sulfate. And why did magnesium sulfate become the miracle cure? Well, a place called Epsom in France, there was a pool of water. People get into this pool of water, and they soak in it for a while, and it relaxes, and they feel better, and they make more energy, because that magnesium is so good for making energy and allowing the muscles to relax, and allowing the heart to beat, and the blood vessels to relax as well. So that is why that the muscles need energy to relax. So metformin, how does that affect it? Well, if you can't make energy, then the muscles contract and you get spasms easily, and that's where muscle pains come in. That's not a common problem, but it is a problem. And the other thing that it does, of course, is as you take it, it affects your intestines because it affects the mitochondria of your intestines and the muscle contraction in your intestines. And so a lot of people get, it's actually fairly common to get intestinal complaints like nausea, vomiting, even diarrhea is less common, but it could be there. And I've had people say, oh yeah, ever since I went on metformin, I can't take metformin. I get these stomach problems. And sometimes that's the case. Sometimes some people just can't tolerate it. But most people, if they start with a very low dose, it's 500 milligrams is kind of a standard low dose, once a day with food. And then after a couple of weeks, they can go up to a higher dose. And after a couple of weeks, they can go up to a higher dose. They usually tolerate that pretty well. So that's what metformin can do outside of the diabetes. So what does it do for the diabetes? Well, if it allows your body or causes your body to start burning fat when you are limited in your ability to burn fat, well, now you're going to have more energy available for your cells. Your mitochondria will work better, and your energy systems will work better because they won't be all blocked up. So that's how metformin helps the energy systems, and it helps the blood sugar to go down for a different reason, and that is it makes them more sensitive to the insulin. So as insulin comes in, it allows sugar to go into the cells more, which is better if you're on the Barton Publishing Program and you're doing the phase 1 and you're getting very low carbohydrates. Then you're taking metformin, and metformin allows you to be more insulin sensitive, allows more sugar into the cells, and that will allow your blood sugar to come down faster and to function better. So
a lot of people ask if they can stop taking metformin. At what point, say you're doing the diabetes solution kit, things are going really well, your numbers are really low. What do you do with your metformin in that scenario? Because that is happening to a lot of people, you guys. So yeah, it's a good thing.
So what's cool about metformin, as opposed to a lot of the other medications for diabetes, insulin, all the biguanides, like diabeta and all of the and most of the incretins will cause you to get low blood sugar. But metformin will not. Metformin is not something that causes hypoglycemia. In other words, it makes you more sensitive to the insulin, but it also decreases the amount of insulin that you have. So as opposed to the others that increase the amount of insulin and cause you to get blood sugar to drop too low. So you can keep going on the metformin. You don't have to go off it. If you're tolerating it well, you can stay on it. Yeah, even when you get to the normal blood sugars. But when you're normal and your blood sugars are normal, then you don't need it anymore. You could safely stop it.
Okay. John had commented here that metformin did nothing for him except cause severe stomach pain. It did not help with his blood sugar. About 6 years ago. Is there a similar drug that won't break the bank?
Yes. In fact, not a drug. There are other drugs that are similar, but they're too potent, and they inhibit the mitochondria too much, and so they cause problems. So you want to avoid all of those. And if metformin didn't work, that's not your thing. That's not your problem, and that's why it didn't work in the first place. So you don't necessarily want that. But if you want the benefits of it, berberine is actually really good. Berberine does most of the things, or actually all of the things, but in a different way than metformin. And so I often, in my patients, I tell them if they're getting off metformin, they can just take berberine, and that would be okay. One of the reasons we made the Synachroma is because if people aren't having good responses to their medications, it's often because they are lacking in nutrients. And there are certain nutrients that make you sensitive to the insulin. And one of those is vitamin D. That's very important for insulin sensitivity. Vanadium, chromium are two minerals that actually help you be more efficient in using your blood sugar. And then selenium is really important as an anti-inflammatory and for using thyroid properly. And so we put together some common nutrients that are deficient that are important for the proper utilization of sugar. So when people have like metformin didn't work at all for me, didn't do anything for me, try something. Try taking the synochroma for a while. And what that will do is support the amount of supplements that you get and improve the function of the mitochondria. And then you might find that metformin works better.
Interesting. Okay. I just realized I always say your name is Coney. It could be Connie. So let me know. I'm sorry. I've been saying your name wrong for who knows. We're on 137. So I apologize. But Coney, he says, when I get a cramp in my foot or legs, I take apple cider vinegar with some water and the cramp is gone. So very cool. That's a good little thing to try.
Yeah. A lot of people use that. That actually is very useful. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, good stuff. Let's see, more questions. Okay, we have a lot of questions. I'm going to just start at the top and here we go. So Sheila's asking if it's okay to make smoothies with fruits and vegetables together. And one thing that I just want to quick ask too, if you're doing the diabetes solution kit, when you're asking these questions specifically about food, let us know if you're doing the kit and maybe what phase you're on. Because if you're doing phase 1, you're limited to 20 grams net carbs. And so fruits can jump those up real quickly. So I'm just kind of curious. So, but what would be your thoughts about a smoothie with fruits and vegetables together?
So fruits and vegetables together is fine as a rule. Most smoothies if I make a smoothie, I usually use berries because berries are pretty high in fiber and low in sugar. And they add a lot of flavor. So they have a lot of flavor, high fiber, low sugar. And then at the same time, I'll go out to my garden and get a bunch of kale and kale and spinach and greens and put them in there. And that makes a great smoothie. So I think that's fine. The thing you don't want to do is mix fat and sugar together. So if you're making a smoothie, don't try to avoid putting in, like a lot of people will put in peanut butter, coconut oil, and stuff like that. Just make fruit and vegetables. Yeah, just make a fruit and vegetable smoothie and don't put the fat in because fat will cause you to be insulin resistant for a period of time. So it actually will increase your insulin resistance. So it's better to have just the carbs, and then look at like Leslie was saying, look at how many carbs you're putting in there if you're counting, especially in phase 1.
And just for clarification, when you say don't mix your fat and sugar, you're talking about the sugar in the fruit.
Yeah, sugar and fruit, carbs in general.
Yep.
Yeah. So, people, some people find, okay, so let me give you some examples. A baked potato. And you might have been told, oh no, you can never have baked potato ever in your life again. But actually, if you don't put fat on a baked potato, like if you don't put butter or sour cream, or coconut oil or whatever people put on baked potato, if you just eat the baked potato with spices, then you may find that you don't get a sharp rise in your blood sugar. So that's something to consider, is the mixing of the fat and the carbs might be a good solution to that.
All I heard was French fries. French fries are okay. I'm kidding.
Of
I'm kidding.
course.
No, I'm just sitting here thinking about a baked potato, and I'm like, we don't eat a lot of baked potatoes, but what do you put on it if you don't put a fat? So I gotta think about that a little bit more.
Oh, I have a spice mix that's really good on baked potatoes. It's
Okay,
just a bunch of spices.
awesome.
It's really good.
Okay, good to know. Let's see. I love this message. This is from Coney again. I think it's Coney. I was able to drink only water for 3 weeks, and my left hand, thumb, index, and middle finger has some feeling back, but not much on the right hand. For the past 3 to 4 weeks, I have been eating, but plan to do just water again. Thank you for your help.
Wow,
That's
that's really
amazing.
good. Good. Yeah,
Yes.
that neuropathy. Well, it takes a long time for nerves to regenerate, but yeah, and I hope you're using Nervala, which has the alpha lipoic acid and the benfotiamine.
Awesome. Guys, if you're not familiar with our supplements, we have quite a few amazing supplements that Dr. Saunders helped formulate, and you can find those at bartonnutrition.com. There is a 25% code that I will give you. I'll type it in here. It's webinar 25. So I will type that in the chat here so you guys can check that out. We use almost all the products at our house. So okay, next question is from James. What do you know about wild microalgae and if it's healthy to take?
Hmm. Let's see, wild microalgae. There are several kinds of algae that are actually really good for you. The algae that are on top of the water, they get ultraviolet light and they make vitamin D and they make omega-3 oils. You wonders, where does fish come from? Fish oil. You think the fish make it? No, the fish don't make it. It's the algae, and then the fish eat the algae, and that's where the fish get their oil. So if you have farmed fish and they're being fed corn, then that fish oil is not going to be omega-3, high in omega-3s. So the algae is as long as it's from a place that is relatively unpolluted, I guess, and it isn't toxic. And then there are certain types of algae that are toxic, but of course they wouldn't market those. Yeah, generally algae's fine. A lot of people want to bypass the middleman, so to speak, and eat the fish food and instead of the fish.
All right. Let's see. John says, well, I already said that part. Oh, I actually answered some of these. Okay, John says, I want to know why there isn't more conversation on cortisol and lack of sleep, but has such a negative effect on blood sugar and trauma. Its effects on blood sugar. It can affect it and cause a big swing. John says he uses berberine now. Any thoughts on that?
Yes, yeah, berberine's wonderful for a lot of different things. It's just the more I study it, it's like, oh yeah, it works for that. Just like I was talking about metformin blocking cancer, berberine blocks cancer. In fact, if I had cancer, I would take berberine. That would be really important, and it's really good for anti-aging, and it lowers blood sugar, and it improves metabolism. And just about anything it's studied is, oh yeah, berberine's good for that. Oh, what about this? Yeah, berberine's good for that. It's like one of those kind of amazing things. So, but your question or your comment or question about the adrenal glands and cortisol, it's huge. We have done several different episodes in this webinar on the importance of lowering stress. We talked about stress specifically. We talked about the 6-10 reset and what that means. And that's getting your circadian rhythm right so you don't have this excessive cortisol, getting your sleep patterns right. Everything you said is exactly right on. If your stress is high, I tell the story about this one patient that only had diabetes because she was stressed. Only and it was uncontrollable. Her diabetes was always over 200, 300, and she was on 200 units of insulin. It wasn't working. and taking 4 medications, and all of that together was not lowering her blood sugar at all, not even sometimes. And then her daughter moved out of her daughter and she were fighting all the time. Her daughter moved out of the house, and then her blood sugar dropped down to normal and stayed normal off of all the medications. It was just stress. She was a total stress-induced diabetes. So yeah, John, everything you're saying is exactly right. It's very, very important. And there are several episodes of this webinar that we've discussed that.
So good. Okay, couple questions about berberine. Let's talk about 1, where do you get it? And 2, can I take it with metformin?
Good questions. Okay, first of all, where do you get it? I get it at my local health food store. That's where I get it. It's important to get a good brand because the state of New York went in and looked at mostly herbs in several different stores. They went into a GNC and I think it was a CVS pharmacy and one other store where people buy supplements, and they found that like 80% of them did not have what they said they had in them. And some of them had none, 0, and some had varying amounts. And so 20% of them actually have it. And there are several brands that are really good about testing before and after, and they have some sort of standardization. They say, yeah, this has been tested to this standard, and this is what it has. So for a source of berberine, there's generally the Now brand is been tested. That's one national brand that I often see. And let's see. Well, the ones I like are pure encapsulations. If you can get that one's tested before and after, and that's actually really good. Okay. So as far as brands go, other than that, I don't know.
Okay. Question here from our friend Annette. What is the amount of chromium that is needed daily for diabetics?
Oh, about 200 micrograms a day.
Okay.
Is great. Yeah.
And how much is in our Synochroma?
Synochroma is 200 micrograms.
Okay. Perfect. And you can get that at Barton Nutrition, guys. And I did post the link for that. That is probably, actually, I don't know this for sure, but I think I get the most requests for information about Synochroma. Okay. Jane says, how does the drug Farxiga compare with metformin?
Okay. Very different mechanism of action. Farxiga prevents you from absorbing sugar in the kidney, so it causes you to pee out, to urinate out all your sugar, because sugar gets leaked out and is normally reabsorbed back into the blood, and this blocks it from being reabsorbed so that it goes out in the urine. So and metformin works like by making you more sensitive to your insulin and then allowing you to burn fat more easily. So it works in a different way. They work completely different ways. And as far as is one better than the other, I don't know. If your blood sugar is generally high, Farxiga's okay, but basically, if you're just not putting anything in, if you're on phase 1, your blood sugar come down and should come down without Farxiga.
Okay. John says he gets his berberine from Nut Flare, and it has Ceylon cinnamon in it. Very interesting. Okay, we maybe didn't answer this. Was it okay to take berberine with metformin?
Yes, and berberine and metformin are okay together. Yes.
Okay. And how much berberine do you take?
500 milligrams once a day. That's what I have. You can take more, like if you have higher blood sugars, you can take it twice a day.
Today's Fixed Blood Sugar webinar is sponsored by Synachroma, our best-selling advanced blood sugar support formula. Now, thousands of people around the world are taking Synachroma every day as part of their program to fix their blood sugar using natural ingredients that simply work. Now, Dr. Saunders formulated Synachroma to meet key nutritional deficiencies that most people have unknowingly suffered from for far too long. With Synachroma, you get a blend of 6 key ingredients. The perfect combination of chromium, vitamin D3, and vitamin K2, which it's important to take those 2 together, selenium, vanadium, and our 10-to-1 cinnamon bark extract. Now, if you're not already using Synachroma, I highly recommend that you give it a try and see how it helps your energy, your weight, and your blood sugar numbers. You can get Synachroma at bartonnutrition.com or on Amazon. If you get it at bartonnutrition.com, you can enter the coupon code webinar25 and you'll save 25% off at bartonnutrition.com. But I realize some people like to go to Amazon as well. So anyways, Synachroma, highly recommend. Now let's get you back to the Fixed Blood Sugar webinar.
Okay, good information. And then another question, let's see, I believe it was about chromium. Oh, can you take too much?
Chromium, you will get rid of chromium. It doesn't get toxic. And so if you're taking 1 milligram a day, there were some weight loss programs a long time ago when they found out that chromium helped you use more use sugar more easily, and then would allow you to burn fat because it lowered insulin in people who were deficient. So people who are deficient, they give them chromium and they would burn fat more easily and they would lose weight. And they're like, wow, this is really good. So there was actually a program for giving people, and it was 1 milligram. It's like 1,000 micrograms. And so that's, you know, a lot more, and it doesn't get toxic at those levels. And if you've heard of, there was a movie out about chromium toxicity, hexavalent chromium toxicity. I don't remember what it's called. Anyway, so there was so people worry about chromium, like, oh no, it's a totally different type of chromium. The chromium, the hexavalent chromium, is different than the chromium that you're going to get for a supplement.
Interesting. Okay, so now can you take chromium, berberine, and metformin together?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. And cinnamon.
Hey, good.
Yeah. And it has the Ceylon cinnamon in it. Yeah.
And Sandra had also asked, am I supposed to take my metformin right after my meals, not hours after I have eaten? So when is the best time to take metformin?
With a meal is the best time. And so when you're eating, or right after a meal would be fine. Yeah. But if you take it before the meal, like on an empty stomach, that's where people get like the stomach irritation and that. So, I remember one doctor saying, take your first bite of food before you take your metformin. But if you finished a meal and you take your metformin, that's fine.
Okay. Our friend Krish says, with all the good effects of that metformin does in non-diabetics, would you expect a similar action in diabetics will be in play after the A1C is reduced to 5.4 and a patient or a subject continues to take metformin?
Yes, and that's one of the things about metformin is why you can stay on it even when you don't have diabetes. You can stay on it. One of the things that it does, though, is increases the lactic acid. It because of the way it inhibits the mitochondria. Lactic acid is what it's built up, like when you're exercising really heavily. So that high lactate level, there's something that you can do that I think is a good idea for both. If you're taking berberine for anti-aging and you're taking metformin for anti-aging, one good idea would be to take it intermittently, and that would be like a week on, a week off kind of thing, or 5 days on, 5 days off. That kind of a program seems to be a really good way of preventing chronic problems while getting the benefits without the risks.
Okay.
So I think, when research is done on these kinds of things, even herbs, wormwood for malaria, they looked at different ways of giving it, and the wormwood extract is better, if it worked better if they did 5 days on, 2 days off, 5 days on, 2 days off, or 7 days on, 7 days off. Worked better than doing it continuously, as far as getting rid of malaria. So, or preventing malaria. So things work better when you have some time off. So I think something like, if I was taking metformin for anti-aging, that I would use it a week on, a week off. That would be my way of doing it.
Okay. Our friend Anku is on. I sent you an email. I need your address, Anku. We did such an awesome, Anku and I had a really good chat, and he's just such a cool guy. Anyway, if you guys are ever interested in hopping on a video chat with me, I would love to hear your stories, how things are working for you, and just kind of chat about things that worked well for you, what you didn't love, what was hard, where you were, where you are, etc. You can email me, Leslie, Leslie at bartonpublishing.com. I would love to chat with you. So anyway, another question from Krish. I was hesitant to ask a related question, but wanted to ask anyway. All right, why are the ill effects of metformin spread around through various media, thus discouraging them to drop metformin in lieu of other medications?
Because it's cheap, it's easy to get, and you can get it anywhere in the world. And in some places it's over the counter. And there are billions of doses, with no side effects. So because it's cheap and easy, and it's generic, and the drug companies want you to take their new and improved drugs, which really aren't any better, in fact are worse. And they have control of media. So as long as the person who's paying for the ads is going to tell you what they want you to hear. So just think about it this way, that, even if you're talking about anti-aging, the experience with metformin is really good, as far as there's really toxicity is more of like, my stomach hurts, or I got some diarrhea from it, or I got muscle cramps from it. Whereas some of the other ones are like, your diabetes is getting worse, now you have to get your foot cut off. Metformin's not doing that, whereas the other drugs do that. So, it's just marketing, and you have to look at it and say, yeah, that's what people are doing. They're saying my drug's better than your drug because of this and this, and they just leave something out. That's all.
I will say I've known Dr. Saunders for a long time, and I don't really hear him say positive things about prescription drugs very often. And not that he doesn't, he still uses them. He's,
prescribe them.
Yeah, of course. Yes, that's what I meant. So what would be the reason though that someone would, what are the side effects that are bad? I mean, I feel like we're talking about a lot of the good things. Remind us again of why you don't want to necessarily be on prescription medications.
Generally speaking, the purpose of a prescription medication is to relieve a symptom. In the process of relieving a symptom, it is toxic to the body and causes other problems. We call them side effects, but you could just as well call it toxicity. So metformin, is it toxic? Well, yeah, you're poisoning the mitochondria. You're preventing the mitochondria from using sugar. You're blocking mTOR, which, these are normal processes. So anything that blocks the normal processes of the body can be called a toxin. And so when you have something like an antidepressant or an antihistamine, you're blocking the normal histamine receptors. An antidepressant, you're blocking the normal receptors for like serotonin. So prescription drugs are generally toxic, but a lot of things are. If you've heard of, there's a doctor from Santa Barbara that talks a lot about the lectins in foods and how lectins are toxic. And it's like, when you listen to it, it's like, oh my gosh, lectins are horrible. If you eat a handful of red beans, you could die. And that's all true. But if you take those same red beans and soak them and pour off the supernatant and then you cook them, then the lectins are pretty much gone. And the ones that are there are signaling. So the toxins signal the body to do certain things. And so in a sense, yes, the prescription drugs are toxic, but sometimes you need that push in one direction to put things over the edge so that you can like burn fat with metformin, for example.
Okay, good. Our friends Vila and Barbie are here, and they said we've both been off of metformin for almost 3 weeks. Our blood levels are averaging between 90 and 120, and they are following the program very consistently. They are amazing. I got to chat with them, and they're so cool. Okay. Let's see. Akudo says, I was diagnosed with prediabetes and I've been taking Synachroma for 5 months now. He's wondering if it's good for him. He has been noticing that he has not been sleeping at all, but has been having some back pain. And so that could be affecting the reason that he's not sleeping. He did take magnesium and it's not seeming to work. He's kind of wondering if he should stop the Synachroma. Do you have any thoughts?
Yes. Thank you for asking that, because that brings up an important concept that everybody here needs to know. And that is, there isn't one answer for everybody's problem. And so if you go to a doctor and you're depressed and they say, here, take the Prozac, does that work for you? They don't know if it's going to work for you. Is that right? They don't know if that's right for you. You may get a terrible side effect from it and get nausea and vomiting and have irritable bowel syndrome from it. And you go, forget that noise. That's terrible. We don't know in advance what's going to work and what's not going to work. So every time you're doing something, you're a guinea pig. You're testing yourself. When you try certain foods or a certain diet, I mean, we're putting you on a very low carbohydrate diet. Does that work for everybody? No, it doesn't. Most people, it's the easiest way of dealing with that as far as the dietary part goes. But you're still just doing a test. When you do phase 1 of the program, you're going, okay, I'm going to test this out. And some people, we talked about them today, coming back and they're going, oh my gosh, my blood sugar's come down. I'm off my drugs. I'm feeling better. And that's fine. But then some people come back and go, hey, you know what? I've been doing this for 6 months and I have not been able to get off my medication. It's not working for me. Why not? Okay. So that's where you get to the Synachroma and you go, since I've been taking the Synachroma, I'm not sleeping and I have back pain. I wonder if it's the Synachroma. Well, that's a reasonable question. So the next step is get off the Synachroma, quit taking it. And if all your pain goes away and you're fine, and then you go, I had somebody do this once. And then you take it back again and all your pain comes back. Okay, that's a pretty sure thing that's your issue or that probably is there something in there that you're reacting to or whatever. I had somebody with a rash and he said, it can't be my blood pressure medication. And I'm like, well, go off the blood pressure medication. He did, it went away. And he goes, I don't believe it. Started taking it again, it came right back in the same spot. He goes, okay, I believe it. That's what it is. So, but you know what? That's what everybody's doing. You're testing and everything you're doing. And that's why we have this disclaimer in the beginning, because we don't know if this particular thing is going to apply to you specifically. You have to test.
Okay, message here from Paul. Is Glucerna good to drink?
I don't think so. I think if you just do natural things, drink water and eat food, and eat good food, like real food, like live food, like things that isn't processed, it doesn't come in a box or a bag or dried out or whatever. Eating good food, drinking water. I mean, one of the issues, one of the reasons why you're here and we're talking to you is because there's a problem, and whether it's genetic or whatever, then you have to use your epigenetics, that's the diet and your lifestyle, to change your genes, and that's what you have to do. So I don't think Lucerna is a good idea, and I don't think any kind of sweeteners, even if they're artificial sweeteners, I don't think those are a good idea either.
Okay. Here's a question from Anonymous. I was reading some information about ceramide compounds and that they need to be cleared from the body in order to have normal blood sugars. Does the Synachroma and Nervala, along with very low carbs, clear the ceramide compounds?
Okay, that's an excellent question. The answer is I don't know. Ceramide compounds need to be excreted by the liver. The liver needs to process them first. And the liver has four mechanisms by which they can process, essentially, to excrete these kinds of things. So the Synachroma, Nervala, that's not what they do. No, I don't think they work on any of those. You would need other things. You need glutathione, first of all, is a very important part of it. You also need good gut bacteria to get rid of ceramide compounds. And we often don't talk about that for detox, but you have to have the good gut bacteria to make the beta-glucuronidase that's going to allow that to be excreted. So I think that no. Well, the answer to the question is no, but getting good nutrition will be very helpful.
Okay. Vila and Marty said, just a comment about Nervala. It has given me, Vila, my feeling back in my leg to the point where I'm able to exercise more effectively and efficiently. Great program.
Wow. Thanks. That's great.
Nothing. And they're also following the Diabetes Solution Kit very consistently too. So
yeah, that's an important part of it.
Yeah, they're going hard for it. So this is good. Okay, good question here from Anku. What should be your bedtime sugar levels when your diabetes is reversed?
Your bedtime sugar levels, well, under 100, ideally. And if your stomach's empty, if you're on the 6:10 reset and you haven't eaten since 6 o'clock and your stomach's empty, it should be between 70 and 90. That would be the optimum place to be.
Okay. Sandra's asking if fatty liver is common for people with diabetes.
Yes, very common. In fact, more common than you think. And there are a lot of reasons for that. A big reason is eating a lot of sugars, and the sugar that specifically contributes the most to fatty liver is probably fructose. And the reason why fructose is used so much is it's a lot sweeter than glucose. So we have sucrose, which is the double sugar, which is one glucose and one fructose. And then honey is the sucrose broken apart, so you have the glucose separately from the fructose. But fructose by itself has a sweeter taste than the glucose. So fructose is commonly used. So you've heard of high fructose corn syrup. And all that means is corn syrup is mostly glucose usually, but they process it so that some of that glucose is made into fructose. And so now they have usually around 50%, a little more or less, fructose, which makes it more like honey, more like agave nectar, and coconut sugar. These are all essentially the same thing. It's glucose and fruit, and it's that fructose that seems to cause or contribute a lot to the fatty liver. And so yes, fatty liver is very common in diabetes. And the way out, essentially, if you follow the program of the Diabetes Solution Kit, and you're doing phase 1, during the phase 1, when you're essentially getting almost probably no fructose at all, because you're just eating, all your carbs are going to be from fruit and vegetables, which are mostly in glucose, then that should go away pretty quickly.
Okay. John says, thank you. This has been very informative. I'm getting ready for phase 2. That is awesome. John, I'd love to hear more about that. Can you email me at leslie@bartonpublishing.com? I'd love to hear your story. Anonymous says, does Synachroma have any side effects? If my blood sugar stays consistently under 100 for 3 months, when can I stop taking it?
Oh, you can stop taking it anytime. The idea of the Synachroma is really just kind of to help you along, but also to add in the nutrition. So Synachroma is something I take. I don't have diabetes, but I take it because our foods don't have the things that are in the Synachroma, like the chromium, vanadium, selenium, vitamin D. So it's a good source of vitamin D because it has 5,000 units, international units. It's not like the really low dose one. So it's like the right amounts of everything. So I take it once a week or so, a little less sometimes, a little more sometimes, but.
Okay. Connie said, when I first started taking Metformin, the doctor put me on 2,000. So I went to the bathroom all the time. But when I cut it down to 500 a day, now it's normal boop, but not taking it anymore because of all the bad press. So very interesting.
Yeah.
John is asking, liquid B12 versus B complex, or does Nervala solve that issue?
No, Nervala doesn't solve that issue. Nervala has one B vitamin in it, it's B1, and it doesn't have the B12. And, I think B12 is important. And the liquid B12 versus a B complex, it really doesn't make that much of a difference because, we're told like you can get the B12 under the tongue, or they even have like a cream B12 that you can put on your skin, but very tiny amounts are absorbed through the skin or under your tongue. Actually, there's like an 18-inch section of your intestines where you can absorb B12. And if you're not absorbing it in that 18 inches, then wherever else you put vitamin B12 is really not going to be sufficient for you. So taking it orally, whether it's liquid or a pill, is fine.
Okay. Another question about cinnamon or Synachroma with berberine. And yes, you can take those together. Dr. Saunders has said.
Yes.
Kenneth said, I've been taking Synachroma for almost 2 months and I take 2 supplements every day, but I'm noticing back pains and I believe losing weight. Is it good to continue? And my A1C drops low. Why is it that it rises to 110 sometimes?
Okay, so there's a lot of questions here. First of all, for the back pain, I don't know that has anything to do with Synachroma. I wouldn't understand why that would happen, but people can have reactions to things that can cause spasms of back muscles and lack of blood flow, and that could be an issue. So the way you test that is what we were talking about before. Go off it and see if that works. Losing weight's a great idea, usually, unless you're overly thin, and I don't know if you are. And then the blood sugar, being in the normal range most of the time and sometimes going up. There's a whole lot of things that are affecting your blood sugar. It's not just what you eat. It's not just the synochroma, and it's not even just your insulin. There's glucagon and incretins and insulin-like growth factors, and there's all kinds of things going on in your body all the time that are affecting what your blood sugar is going to be. So yeah, it'll go up to 110 or whatever. People with these continuous glucose monitors, the CGMs, are able to see now their blood sugar, going like this all the time. Someone showed me one today, and he's going, "Why does that happen?" And I'm like, "I don't know. Now you can see every little blip in it, and I cannot account for every blip." He said, "I didn't eat anything and it went up." Well, you make glucagon. Glucagon tells your liver make more sugar and it goes up. I don't know. There's a lot of factors involved.
It'd be fun to just watch how stress impacts things too.
Yes.
Just, I don't know. I would have fun. I wish I could get one. So
now with the CGM, you could actually see how the stress affects you.
Right, exactly. Yeah. I think that'd be very interesting. Okay, let's see. Krish says, in the case of type 2 diabetics who have a family history of ending up with kidney complications, PCP prescribes Invokana 300 milligrams to prevent the onset of DKD. Is it okay to combine Metformin, Invokana, and berberine together? Thanks for a great webinar today.
Yes, and that would not be a bad idea. See, each of them works in a different way. But one thing I want to stress, and we've talked about this before, and I haven't talked about it today yet, is that more important than all of those, more important than the synochroma, the berberine, Invokana, or Metformin, or whatever, more important than the pills is your diet. And so the program is phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. That's the program. All of the other things are the helps. Okay, so synochroma, if you're low in chromium and vanadium, it's going to help you a lot. If you're low in vitamin D, it's going to help. But those are helpers. Those don't fix the problem. The fixing of the problem, prevention of kidney damage, is going to come when your blood sugars are normal. That's what's going to prevent your kidneys from dying.
Okay, lots of questions today about the supplements, and this has been really good. I know Dr. Saunders needs to go and get with his patients. I'll just ask this quick. Anku is asking about when is the best time to stop eating?
Okay, best time to eat is in the morning. Best time to stop eating is in the evening. So if you're going to skip a meal, skip dinner. And no food after 6. That's our 6-10 reset program. No food after 6. Go to bed by 10. Helps keep your stress hormone levels normal. Keeps your circadian rhythm functioning well. So no food after 6 is a great idea. I just today talked to somebody who wants to lose weight, and I told them, well, no food after 3 is a better option, and that's been shown in several studies. So if you just eat, he's going to eat 2 meals. He's going to eat at 8 in the morning and 3 in the afternoon, and that's it. That's a really good way of doing it too.
Okay. Deanna had emailed me this too, I believe. I'm going to ask quickly, can intermittent fasting affect your cortisol, raise it in the morning, and therefore affect your blood sugar level in the morning when you wake up?
Yes, absolutely. So any stressor of the body is going to affect your cortisol. Anything that stresses your body for any reason. We often think of stress as, oh, I'm nervous and jittery and I'm worried about something, but we don't think about physical stressors going to increase, or chemical stressors like getting low blood sugar raises your cortisol levels. So yes, anything you do that changes your metabolism can affect your stress hormone levels, cortisol.
Any known interactions with methotrexate for arthritis? as far as like taking metformin or any of the supplements?
With methotrexate. Well, methotrexate is a chemotherapy agent for suppressing the immune system. And I don't know what the those, you would have to ask your doctor. I would actually, if you're given methotrexate, there's a reason for that.
And that's for arthritis, they said.
Yes, for arthritis, but there's a reason you're using that one, which is for suppressing the immune system, instead of something else. So yeah, I would ask your doctor.
Today's Fixed Blood Sugar webinar is sponsored by Synachroma, our best-selling advanced blood sugar support formula. Now, thousands of people around the world are taking Synachroma every day as part of their program to fix their blood sugar using natural ingredients that simply work. Now, Dr. Saunders formulated Synachroma to meet key nutritional deficiencies that most people have unknowingly suffered from for far too long. With Synachroma, you get a blend of 6 key ingredients. The perfect combination of chromium, vitamin D3, and vitamin K2, which it's important to take those two together, selenium, vanadium, and our 10-to-1 cinnamon bark extract. Now, if you're not already using Synachroma, I highly recommend that you give it a try and see how it helps your energy, your weight, and your blood sugar numbers. You can get Synachroma at bartonnutrition.com or on Amazon. If you get it at bartonnutrition.com, you can enter the coupon code webinar25 and you'll save 25% off at bartonnutrition.com. But I realize some people like to go to Amazon as well. So anyways, Synachroma, highly recommend. Now let's get you back to the Fixed Blood Sugar webinar.
Okay. Awesome. You guys, that's it for today. Dr. Saunders, I kept you here 2 minutes overtime. You better go. Thank you so much. We'll see you next week. And all of you, again, thanks for being with us. Same time next week. Invite a friend. I think we just about maxed out. I don't know. Somehow we keep going over the number of people that we actually are allowed to have on these webinars. But hey, we'll take it, right? Again, email me, leslie@bartonpublishing.com if you want to chat and kind of share your story. I would be so grateful. And that's it for today. So I'll see you guys next week. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.